I never realized how unique the English language is. Many people tout that it doesn't have rhythm, it's not flowy or romantic as other languages. Yet, for all its shortcomings, it's a complex and rich language. In this week's lesson, All the A Sounds, I demonstrate the different sounds of the letter A in American English with a lo-fi hip-hop soundtrack. These sounds will help you become fluent and proficient speakers of English. It'll take time to learn them and use them all. A is the smartest letter in the alphabet. Why is that? Though the origin of the alphabet is a theoretical study, a study based on good theories, not exactly concrete, not exactly proven fact, what is known is that what we know as today's letter A was always in the first position. This is based on the earliest texts that have been found from the Mediterranean region. I started thinking about the psychological or cultural associations that are linked in American culture to the letter A. What a wondrous world we have, where a letter can represent so much. It's no wonder we use it in American schools to represent a perfect score, or at least the highest score. The value of being an A student is coveted, sought after, and envied, and probably the minimalist prerequisite in top schools. The cultural and psychological associations with the letter A seem pretty high. I would even say it's the cause of teen angst in cases where the value is greatest. That damn A. Here's a few more examples. People can be called atypical when they're not, well, typical. This means they're not the average Joe. An average Joe is a moniker for an average person, regardless of gender. While an average Joe is what we consider an average person, an atypical would be someone who's not average. They're special because they fall outside of what we in American culture consider, well, not an average person. Let's avoid using words like normal because it's not a matter of being normal or not normal. Being atypical doesn't explicitly imply, directly means something is abnormal. It's just not typical. You might be a typical person and have some atypical hobbies or characteristics. Think of people who can hold their breath for 10 minutes underwater, or people in polar bear clubs who jump into the freezing cold winter ocean every New Year's Day. Those people are atypical, not the average Joe in these feats. Achievements. There are some atypicals who deviate in more peculiar, unique ways, like people who study and speak ancient languages. Did you know that there are people who do this in order to provide Hollywood with new languages for sci-fi films? I'm not sure if it's correct to assume it's also used broadly to describe an autistic person, or if it's just Netflix. In a popular series dubbed Atypical, they explore the life of an autistic teenage boy who struggles with all the typical things of adolescence, like learning to drive, getting a girlfriend, working a minimum wage part-time job, dealing with his crazy family, and making decisions about his future. It's hard to say if they were calling being autistic atypical or just pointing out the irony that life with autism is not much different than life without. What other psychological or cultural associations are linked in American culture to the letter A? Some people are considered A-type personalities. Notice it's type, not typical. That's probably confusing at first. An A-type personality in American culture is a person who's a leader and works hard, even aggressively, to always be on top of their game, their work, their schedule, their knowledge. They're described as the high achievers in school and life. Often they're competitive and ambitious. I want to insert a point here, a caveat, if you will, especially for any American native speakers reading this. An A-type personality doesn't have the same meaning worldwide. There are cultures and places where an A-type is the opposite. I can only speculate that this is because of differences in historical and cultural estimation for the letter A. There's also dominance among animals, labeled alpha. The Greek moniker for A is alpha, so it makes sense that a dominance trait is labeled as alpha. Among the species, there are both alpha male and alpha females. These describe a system where a dominance hierarchy is important to the hierarchy. This term hierarchy is tricky, so many times you hear the slang or colloquial phrase, pecking order. In American classic literature, it's associated with immorality. The great American novel, The Scarlet Letter, a romance, about a woman who conceives a child out of wedlock, out of marriage, is publicly humiliated, punished, and sentenced to wear a big scarlet red letter A for the rest of her life. The A is for her crime of adultery. America's Apollo program. These are the first lunar missions. Apollo 8, the first to orbit the moon, then Apollo 11, the first to land. Maybe it's just coincidental that such a big first would have a name that starts with A. Apollo is the name of the Greek god of the sun, music, and light. In Greek, it's also a verb meaning to destroy. Just food for thought. I hope you enjoyed my takeaways after spending some time with A. These cultural tidbits I've presented to you are widely accepted in America. They're common denominators in American culture and understanding. Let me know in the comments if you have any observations or opinions about this topic. What role does the letter A have in your native culture or in your thoughts? Check out episode 1 of the Common Denominator podcast if you need help shaping your observations and opinions. The video lesson on YouTube, All the A Sounds, is great for just listening. But if you can watch it, it's particularly helpful to read along.